Hey, this is a complete beginner Ableton tutorial where you can follow along as I make this simple drop using only built-in Ableton sounds. Let's get you over the first beginner hurdle. So the first thing we want to do, since we are building a track and not live performing, is we want to switch from session view to arrangement view. How you do this is you click on this button up at the top right here, or you can press tab on your keyboard. Now we are in session view, we can begin. The first thing we are going to do is build some chords. So if you click on this arrow here, you will get this category section on the left. And we want to click on the sounds tab. It'll take you to the top here. We want to open up piano and keys and scroll down until we can find the grand piano option. This is our basic piano sound and is what we are going to use to build the chords for our song, which will be the base of the track. We want to click it and drag it on to this MIDI track over here. Now, in the simplest terms possible, we want to highlight this section of our track, press Ctrl, Shift and M, which will create a MIDI track, and we'll open up a piano roll. This is the piano roll here. Click the top of this bar here and drag up to extend it. Then click to the left of the piano keys and pull to the right with your mouse and it will zoom in. Now we are going to be using mostly white keys in the scale of A minor for this song, and we can also click on this button here, which is scale to the left, and then we can see all different scales onto A and then minor, and this will show the piano roll and the keys that we need to use, which are the white keys for this example of this song. Now we are going to start placing in our chords. So we're going to start with the A2 key. Because we're in the A minor scale, it's good to start off with the bass note of that scale, I find. Double click, and now we're going to drag this note for the rest of the bar, so from 1 to 2. Now we're going to hold Control, hold down, click on this note and drag up, and it will duplicate the note instead of just moving it. Hold Control again, drag up. That's our first chord. Now we're going to continue this process. Hold Control, hold click down. And there we go, 2 chords. We're going to finish off this process, just adjusting the notes and building our last 2 chords. We're going to right click on this piano track here, click rename, and then type in chords to label it for ease. Now that we have our 4 chords in, we're going to add some effects to this chord track. Double click over here, click this arrow once again, and now we want to go to the audio effects category. Now, the 2 most important audio effects are this one here, the compressor, and this one here, the EQ8. You will use these on nearly every single instrument that you have in your track. Click on the EQ8 and drag it in to this section here. First, to save room for the eventual bass in the drop that we're going to add in, click this symbol here on the 1, and we want to select the high pass filter, which is this icon here. Simply remove the low end frequencies of the chords. Now we are going to click the dynamics option up here, compressor, and drag that in here. Now we're going to click this icon here, remove the dB on the threshold. This will make sure the volume, if it gets too loud, is managed. We want a bit of yellow coming down here. Just like that. Now we're going to add another EQ8 to the right of the compressor. This time we are going to click on number 4 here. Simply boost the high frequencies ever so slightly in the chords. Now, since this is an EDM drop, we are going to add some rhythm to the chords. So, follow my lead here. So, we've made a simple groove. Now we're just going to duplicate this groove for the rest of the chords. And we're going to do that the same way as before. Grab your groove notes and just adjust where needed. Hold Control, click, drag. Hold Control, click, drag. And let's listen. This is the glue of the drop that will bring everything together. Now, let's work on a bass line. We're going to go back up to sounds over here, bass, find a bass that we like. I like the punchiness of this electric drive bass, so we're going to drag it into this next MIDI channel. Now, a great trick is if we click into our chords, we can highlight the low notes of them, holding shift as we select each one, and then pressing Control or Command if you're on a Mac, C, then we can highlight a section underneath our chords, Control Shift M to create a new MIDI track, and then we can Control V to paste them in. And we already have a pretty good layout for our bass line. Let's listen. Now what we can do, if we highlight all of these, hold shift and press the down arrow, we can lower them down the piano roll. Now we're going to rename this to bass, and we are going to drag in a compressor like we did for the chords, and an EQ8 like we did for the chords. We're going to lower the threshold on the compressor like we did for the chords, and I want to just cut off a bit of the high frequencies from this bass line. Click on the 8 here, and then this icon here is the low pass filter, which will cut off some of the high frequencies. Let's listen. Now we're going to add our next element in, which is some drums. We're going to click on the drums icon on the left here, and then this option here is a drum rack. We're going to drag it in under these audio channels, and for now actually we can click these audio channels and press backspace to just delete them. Select a quarter of the length of the tracks that we already have, Control Shift M to create a drum rack channel. Now we're going to click into our drum rack, and as you can see here on the bottom left, we can drop in our drum sounds here, and then we are allowed to input them after we have our drum sounds. So we're going to bring in a kick, a hi-hat and a snare. So to do that, we're going to head up to this icon here where it says drum hits, click this arrow, and we're going to select kick, and we're just going to go through the kicks until we find one that we like. I like this simple layered kick here. Click, drag, place. Now we're going to find a hi-hat. I like this one here, and we're going to find a snare. I like this one here. We're going to click and drag it in. Now double click to get into the drum rack, and we're going to double click on each of the start of each bar, place in a kick. Go to the right of our drum track, and we're going to extend it out to the end of where our chords and bass are. What we can do now is we can highlight everything here and click Control L, and it will loop it for us, so we can just listen. Now we're going to click into our drum rack, and we're going to add a hi-hat on the offbeats, like so. And we can also add a snare at the start of the second and fourth beats. And what we're going to do with the snare is we're going to highlight them, and down here we have a velocity tab which will determine how hard the snare is being hit. We want to hold down, select them both, hold down here, and just lower it a bit if it's hitting a bit too hard. What we can also do is we can highlight the kick and raise it. We can also adjust the velocity for the hi-hats. Click and adjust. Now, a hugely important part to EDM, we need to sidechain. What we are going to do is we are going to right click on our drum rack over here, rename it to drums, easier to label, and then we're going to hit the duplicate button. Now we are going to rename this one into our sidechain track. What we're going to do now is click onto our drum rack in our duplicated channel, remove everything, highlight everything, and remove it except for the kick. With this kick, we're going to bring the velocity up to the fullest, and we are going to turn off this drum track by clicking this yellow button on the right hand side here, which will mute the track. I'm going to change the color of it, easier to label. Now we need to go to our other elements that we've done before, our chords first. We're going to bring in another compressor, click this button here, and click this grayed out sidechain button here. Now in this audio from section, we're going to choose our sidechain track that we created. Now we're going to adjust the threshold and lower it quite substantially. Now let's have a listen to how the chords sound with sidechain. As you can hear, whenever the kick comes in our sidechain track, it reduces the volume of our chords, which gives it this nice pumping feel. We can copy this compressor and bring it into our bass track as an effect. We might even want to reduce the threshold even more for the bass, because this is where the frequencies clash the most. Brilliant. Now we are going to add in a lead. So we're going to head back to our sounds and we're going to head to synth lead, and we're just going to find one that we like. I personally like this ARP poly lead. We're going to click and drag it in, create a MIDI track as we've done before with our others. And here we are into the piano roll. Another good tip is we can copy the bottommost from our chords like we did for the bass, and we can match the lead up to the rhythm of the chords, which sounds great most of the time. Copy it in, paste, Control C, Control V, and here we go. Now let's just play with the notes. Let's build something that we like. Now we're going to add some effects to our lead, which we can take from a lot of our other elements. If we can hold shift, we can click on the EQ8 and the compressor. We can copy those in and paste them into our lead. And we can also bring in the sidechain. Now to me, these drums are sounding a bit harsh, so I would like to change the snare on them. We simply find a snare that we like. Drag it in, and then we can simply adjust it. Now we are going to start layering up some of these elements, and this is where it gets really cool. We're going to click on our chords, right click, duplicate, or Control D, and we're going to rename it so it's easier. We can do chord 2, and we can find another element that we like. We can click on the synth keys here, or we can go back to our piano and keys. Let's just find something we like, something that would work well for another chord layer. I like the sound of this one. Hold and drag it into where the chords are, your duplicated chords. Now this is a really nice sound. We're going to give it some EQing. So we're going to listen to it and just adjust and listen as we go. We're going to reduce some more of the low end on this one. While we're at it, let's just make one more chord layer. Let's duplicate this one again. And we're going to go right click here and we're going to find one more nice sounding layer. So what we can do now is we can hold our control button, click this S button on here to solo this track and this one as well. And we can listen to our layers together. Let's say I want this chords 2 to be the most prominent. We can just lower the volume of these slightly. Now we're going to add a layer to our bass line, and the best way to do this I find is just adding a sub bass. So we're going to duplicate and we're going to go into our bass. If you type in the search here, you can search sub bass. This one is nice, like a nice low bass, and we can listen to it by clicking the S here to solo it. And we can hold control and click the S on our other bass layer to listen to both of them. And finally we can add some more layers to our lead. Let's remember to rename our lead, and we can right click, duplicate, and let's find another nice lead sound. We can also combine like pluck sounds in with the lead as well, which could make it pop some more. Let's try and do that. Let's solo it and listen. Now we're going to add some effects onto our drum track. So we're going to double click and we're going to go to audio effects here, and we are going to search for the effect the drum bus. This will make the drums much more punchier. It'll be under drive and color. It'll make the drums much more punchier. We're going to solo them and just listen. Now what we can do is we can layer up some of our drum elements, such as the snare. So if we go to drums here, listen to the snare sounds.